Um, let's go on to reviewing the reviews now. So, welcome to reviewing the reviews. How this works is we are on IMDb here, and eventually I'll be using fans' reviews, people's reviews, when I get some. But in the meantime, we're going to use IMDb. Let me get rid of these articles here. Anyway, so we are on, let's do a 10 out of 10 review, and we'll go down from 10 to 1. So here we go. A 10 out of 10. This is from Sleepin' Dragon. This was written today. Or no, I'm sorry, it was written 3 days ago. It's been amazing being back in the cinema after last year. I've seen some good films and some shockers. This, though, is the first great film of the year for me. The story is somehow easier to follow in the last adaptation. Motives and actions are easier to see and follow. I can imagine. I didn't see the last film, so I can't attest to that. I only watched the first 10 minutes, but I can already tell you this one was easier to follow. I felt as though the book had come to life here, even if there are a couple of changes. Yeah, can't say much there. The acting is impressive, as is the music. The visuals, however, are the most incredible thing about this film. I do agree. It looks awe-inspiring. Battles are epic. The staging is impressive. You almost feel close to the action. I cannot praise the element highly enough. When I saw part 1, I was a little surprised. I was a little more surprised by the ending. I hope the wait isn't too long. Pacing, considering where the film ends, it never felt slow or drawn out. I can't disagree more. It does feel slow. I do think this film is slow, but I'm fine with a slow burn. But again, with this film, the visuals for me weren't as gripping as I wanted them to be. At times, I do think it is, the CG looks very practical, and a lot of these sets look very practical, and I'm fine with that. But I don't know. I was looking for something a little bit more, what I want to say, like colorful. I was looking for a little bit more color in this film. It's just very vapid, the whole film. And I guess that's kind of the point when you're on Arrakis. But even so, like the skies and stuff, I wish could have been a little bit more interesting. That's just my opinion. But this guy's saying it didn't feel slow. Fair enough. I think in the second act it really it slowed down. It slowed down at times, but What am I talking about? It slowed down at times, but yeah, this guy, I was blown away. 10 out of 10. I mean, fair enough. Here's one more. Best IMAX experience, exhilarating soundtrack. I disagree. I did not like the soundtrack. Denis Villeneuve directed a wild ride. Thrills you. I don't understand why people got up during the movie. There was a big audience. The portion got up, which I prefer being prepared to see everything. I love Dune with every penny. Yeah, I heard a lot of people were leaving the theater because they were just bored. I can feel that. I mean, I did get bored at times. It's a slow film, and there's a lot they have to kind of explain, and yeah, it definitely takes its time. And that's the thing. I don't think this is rewatchable to me. Anyway, let's go to 9. Let's get one that's not too long here. Here we go. Denis Villeneuve's Dune is, now this is from Habibi Hakim 123. Denis Villeneuve's Dune is not a perfection because it's still a preparation, a very, very well-made preparation. A perfect build-up for what I hope is going to be a massive and incredible war. More incredible than the original 1984 Dune. Denis Villeneuve's Dune also fills with amazing performance by all the cast. It's for me something special because the movie can't keep me personally awake for 2 hours and 35 minutes. And for a preparation movie with a very big action scene, it's very impressive compared to Avengers Infinity Wars. Another preparation movie to Endgame. Dune is mostly talking and its work. It is better than the original Dune. Well, that's a joke for me because the first 10 minutes of the film are already better. Well, that's great because that's the only first thing. That's the only thing I saw of the first film. The whole movie completely. That's actually what I said too. It was completely, and the whole movie completely is not finished overall. I agree. Yeah. It just kind of drops off the ending. I did not like the ending of this film. Kind of goes to nowhere. Let's go to the eights. Here we go. This is from Mitch Coke. Having read the book 100 years ago. Wow. It took some time to begin to understand what is going on. If there is a criticism that many share, it is the pacing of the first part of the film. It needed something to set the scene for us, to show us who the strong and the weak were. I'm not much for narration, show me, don't tell me. But it may not have been a bad idea. The scenes are magnificent with special effects off the charts. Many doesn't travel scenes are quite endless. How do you spruce up a desert? I thought the sandworms were a little one-dimensional. I know there's another film down the road. This is a fair grade. And he still gave it an 8. And he kind of laid into it a little bit. But interesting. The sandworms were a little one-dimensional. I could see that. But I actually thought they were visually amazing. But yeah. The narration too. Yeah. I definitely saw that. And I was like, this is a red flag. But it ended up not being that big of a deal. Usually I don't like that. But, you know, with this kind of film, like I said, I'm willing to take liberties when it comes to... when it comes to the exposition of the film. I'm willing to take liberties with that, knowing that this is a very dense lore that comes from a book series. So, whatever. 7s. Holy crap. Some of these guys are writing tall tales. Here we go. Better than the 84 Lynch atrocity. Cinematography in this is wonderful, as is the set design, and the sumptuous soundscapes make a big screen must-see. Yeah, oops. Yeah, I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for not seeing this in theaters, but I'll see the second one in theaters, I promise. I know I'm such a champion for 3 theaters and all this crap, blah, blah, blah. I know I'm going to get it. I'm sorry. Okay, that's all I have to say. I don't deserve any of this. Anyway. Add Rebecca acting everyone off the screen, and it is a good film. Yeah, she's great. I thought all the cast was pretty good. Except for, like, Dave Bautista. And Momoa doesn't really have a whole lot to do in this film either. But I don't think that's really his fault. Having said that, isn't that close to the book? Some of the acting is plank, like the choices Denis made. He calls him Dennis, but made it only good. Yeah, heavy on knife fights, low on emotion. I agree. And the knife fights were not really well done. They weren't that creative. I agree with this. The folding space will probably take a few watches to get. It does not explain things in heavy-handed fashion like Lynch did. For those of us more familiar with the subject, you'll feel painfully slow. That's me. Sometimes frustrating. Even though I do think it's painfully slow, but I'm not that familiar with the subject matter. I'll probably end up rewatching the Lynch movie far more times. It's definitely more interesting. Is it decidedly average space adventure? Open the door to yet another franchise. Wow. Aylmer go in. He still gave it a 7 too, and that was a harsh grade. But I do agree, there was a lot of knife fights in this film. A lot of unnecessary knife fights. All right. 6 stars. Let's see what we got here. Too much time spent on... this is from Felia Shibby. Too much time spent building up without any intermittent action or suspense, and then ended like a big WTF. They cut Have at least added some solid action, but wanted to impress with the visuals and all. Now I expect everyone to spend time and money on part 2. Fair enough. Visually stimulating but tedious and verbose with audio difficulties. I agree. The friggin' score was terrible for this film, man. I'm sorry. Hans Zimmer, this was not a good score. And I usually like Hans Zimmer. I thought his Interstellar score was fantastic. I thought his score for The Dark Knight was great. Dark Knight Rises was a great score. So I mean, he's a great composer, but this was a misfire. The bagpipes were jarring. The didgeridoo. Like, he just was like, let me pick all the most jarring instruments possible and put them all in one score. Fair enough. Good, but not too much. Lacks spice. I see what he did there. Here we go. Overrated. This is from Drazen Jennings. I can see why some people like this film, but how does it have a rating above 8 stars? Yeah, it had great cinematography and special effects, but man, was it boring. It probably took me 4 hours to finish. Story just couldn't keep my attention. Every 10 minutes I'd have to rewind and rewatch the scene just so I could follow the storyline. I honestly couldn't wait for it to end. Not a film I'd watch again. Yeah, it is a lot of exposition. That is no doubt. Wrong pick of actors, otherwise decent. All right, let's go to 5s. It's going to get harsher, folks. We're getting into the 5 range. People are going to start getting frustrated. Not the travesty the Lynch version was, but far from a classic or decent adaptation. No, it's too long. I don't want to read that. That is a narrative. No. Here we go. Not the masterpiece everyone is hailing to be. Story is just okay and ends abruptly. I really like some of the parts of this film, but after a point, I just didn't care about it anymore. The casting was while some of it was great, some of it was plain bad. I liked the first hour quite a bit, I might say. The world building was nicely done. After the first hour, the film just didn't make sense. The randomness mixed in the desert, nothing else. In fact, the whole movie literally seemed like a setup. There was just nothing interesting stuff happening. On the scale of which the film was made feels great, but in my opinion, that's the only thing that make you stay to the end. Because as far as the screenplay is concerned, it's quite mediocre. Wow. Yeah. It's okay. I would say mediocre? I don't know. I think mediocre is a little harsh, but I kind of feel the sentiment. Oops. I wasn't all that impressed with this, man. I'd say don't expect much from the story. Go for the cinematic experience. You won't be disappointed. The story seemed like a bit nonsensical for me. Don't get me wrong. I love sci-fi and Star Wars original trilogy, something I dearly hold. But the story of Dune just was just about okay to me. This is actually kind of a sentiment I agree with. I think it's a little harsh to call it mediocre. I think that there is some good dialogue in here, but again, it's just not as gripping as it probably could have been. Yeah, not as exciting, but also not boring. I know what happened. I still don't understand what I was watching. It felt more like a waste of time than entertainment. It's all over the place, telling many stories at all in a short period of time. Managed to pique my interest, but after the payoff felt short, left me hanging and bored. All right, let's go to 4 stars. Dune, endless as a desert. Steampunk sci-fi without any sting. But that's not a bad thing, although the Shakespearean-themed messianic tale is shrouded in the Emperor's new clothes, leaving it nude and exposed, bleached by the sun, but not a whole lot of fun. Wow, that's just funny. Nah, so many slow-mos and flashbacks in this movie. This movie is so boring. It's slow, boring scenes, as barren of joy as a film set on a desert planet can get. Yeah, these two people are all rhyming. I'll do one more. It's only half of a movie. If you know the books, this movie ends halfway through the first book. It wasn't explained like that, and it's a BS way to market a film as the whole movie when it is not. The adaptation is wonderful, faithful to the book, reimagined, but it's only still a half of a movie. They should be ashamed of themselves. Yeah, I agree. It is half of a movie. But I don't know. I enjoyed it. I did. I thought there was good acting here. There was good visuals. Maybe that's just enough for me. But again, it wasn't great. It wasn't even a 4-star for me. It was just, it was good. It was definitely one of the better films I've seen this year. I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. For the Dune haters out there. But I don't hate this film. I thought it was fine. 3s. ZZ's. Here we go. This is from Status Quo. ZZZZZZZZZZ. Oh wait, what a fight. Oh wait, a fight. Dullsville. Rambling, meandering walk through bland desert. How in the hell do you make this so dull? Perhaps stretch out an unnecessary sequel of books of Denis Villeneuve. Let me read this again. How the hell is this so dull? Perhaps to stretch out the two unnecessary sequels or books of Denis Villeneuve still hasn't graduated film school. Pretentious, self-serving snore. Here's an idea. Instead of dead soul dialogue vomiting, try a story of some kind. Wake me later. Wanted something to happen. 15 minutes of nothing. Half hour of nothing. The end, nothing. Huge snooze fest. Not sure I watched the Not sure I watched the SE movie as much. It was SE. If there's a part 2, I won't be watching. Exposition part 1. It's remarkable in how it makes Dune bland and uninteresting. It's funny how you know, as you get lower in the stars, people just put one sentence. Aptly done. That's it. Villeneuve completes his trifecta of sci-fi, incredibly lifeless. Yikes. All right. We are going to the 2 stars. I don't want to read that. Here we go. A drab, morose, self-serious misery. I really like Denis Villeneuve as a director and was truly excited to see his version of Dune. However, this is a drab, morose, and self-serious misery. The film is completely lacking of joy or spectacle. I 100% agree with this take. Joy and spectacle. That's what this film was missing. It was really missing a lot of personality. It just felt very vapid, and that's really what my biggest argument of the film against the film. And I do like it, but again, this is just something I noticed. Did I get a spider bite? No, we're good. Sorry about that. Must be a bug bite of other sorts. Anyway, every CGI set piece is obscure and dark and devoid of detail. Every performance, and I agree with this, is obscure, dark, and this may be my favorite review I've read because I agree with both these takes. I mean, I would say it is kind of drab, and I like this idea of making it like serious misery, but like, and I like that idea of like making it this very dark environment, but like the subject matter it doesn't match that. You know, if you're gonna make it this dark, dreary thing, then it needs to be as dark as Prisoners, like that kind of film. But obviously, they couldn't do that for this because they're trying to market it to a younger audience as well. So it kind of creates this, I don't know, this strange middle ground where you have this really dark, brooding environment, but this, you know, story that just doesn't match with it, in my opinion. I don't know. I agree with this take a little bit. 2.5 hours long because two 2 hours filmed in slow motion. Movies like this are supposed to be fun. This was somatic torture. I don't know about that. Kind of lost me here, but and I don't think this is torture. I don't think this is that bad as this guy thinks. But I do agree with this point that it is lacking that joy and spectacle that, you know, Dune should have, or any sci-fi epic should have had, and that Dune should have had. $165 million snorefest, massive disappointment. Oops. Music was okay. I disagree. Reminded the music of Blade Runner 2. So the desert fight shots reminded me of the same film. Actors chosen were ridiculous. Each one was the wrong person for the job. Javier slept while acting. The only 10 minutes that gave me a feeling of an alien world of some creativity where the battalions were prepared to attack the Duke. Really bad waste of money. Yeah. All right. We're going to go to the 1 stars and then we'll call this. Another fake review film. Super slow and full of abysmal action scenes. Bored to freaking death. Slow going. Pretentious and wrong. They missed it again. Massive visual effects that are really good combined with the dour acting and confusing script. This made for a long, depressing, and boring movie. Perhaps Dune can never be properly made. The book never ends up on the screen. They end this movie in the middle stride. It'll be a couple of years to see part 2. If it gets made at all. It is getting made. Not the book. No, it was nowhere near as good as the book. First film was a disaster. Now we get this abominable pile. Acting is camp. Directing is slow, lacking any brilliance. It is slow, I'll give him that. The dialogue made no sense. I liked some of the dialogue. It was hit or miss. I do agree that it kind of meanders at times. But it's not as egregious as some of the earlier films in this year. And that's kind of what I'm comparing it to at this point. I'm not sure if anyone is going to get Herbert's book right in film. This attempt failed miserable. Don't believe the incredibly inflated reviews are probably written by studio shills. All right, I'll do one more. One more 1 star. What's a funny one? Your 5-year-olds will be yawning with this. If Garbage Wood can't produce a decent film, close it. As courtesy to art. Let's find one more. Writing has become an endangered art. Directors did one great movie, Sicario, and the massive failures of a rival, Blade Runner 2049. He learned the lessons but didn't deliver. Another turd. As it turned out, is not how the movie industry works. Hence, Dune being such a stereotypical bore fest. Like it was trying to emulate the mediocre sci-fi TV shows of recent years. How not to cast. Just because you know your name doesn't mean you have to have on-screen chemistry fit for the roles. We'll do one more. Best Dune film so far. Here, this is the last one. I should be reading a book. They should have titled this ID. They should have titled it Dune. I saw ID there, but I think they meant to say it. They should have titled it Dune half, maybe 1/3. It will not comment on it, although I must grant it is much better than the 1984 Lynch one, which is appalling, and even the 2000 miniseries, which at least gives her book a good try. I hate, don't you, when they drag you to a movie only to find they sold you only the first chapter. Will rate when I get to watch the rest. I do kind of agree with that. And that's why my 3.6 is just me rating it as a solo film. And yeah, that's where I think I'm going to leave it for reviewing the reviews. But yeah,